a girlfriend, but not a girlfriend, who was a secretary on the campus. And we actually sent out 150 letters to radio stations from Maine to Florida. To date the story, we came to one station, WTOP, 50,000 watts, Washington, D.C. Well, that's the major leagues. You can't get any bigger station than that. So I said to Marguerite, well, that's too big a station. We better move on. And she said, it's only going to cost another 3-cent stamp. Today it would be a big deal. But a 3-cent stamp, and that letter to WTOP was the one response where they asked me to actually send some tape. Actually, it was a great big acetate. And after I sent it, they then called back. I had been working at the university, and they called back and said, we don't hire sight unseen. And I went down and auditioned. I eventually got the job, and only after I actually had the job did I find out that there were 52 people who auditioned for that job. So if you want to talk about a long shot, you start off with a 3-cent stamp and a letter to a station where I never thought I would begin working. From there, I came to New York. I was what they called a summer replacement announcer. As each announcer at WTOP went on vacation, I assumed all of his duties. So it was a remarkable experience. I'd open the station at 5 o'clock in the morning and maybe stay on until I closed it at 1 o'clock sometimes. Anyway, it was marvelous, and I could have cared less about what sleep I had. Eventually, my class graduated, and I kept working. But finally, the summer ran out, and they told me that they were pleased with my work and that they would like to have me come back the following February as a permanent staff announcer, which was very thrilling. And I went back to New York, and they had given me some letters of introduction to various people to try to stay alive until the following February. One of the letters was to Red Barber, who was then the director of sports for CBS. And I spoke to him as he was putting his hat and coat on. And he said, leave your name with the girl at the desk. My wife is circling the block, and I understood completely. And about 2 days later, I came home, and my red-haired, very excitable Irish mother, God rest her soul, when I came home, she said, oh, Vinny, you'll never guess who called. And I said, no, Mom, who? She said, Red Skelton. And I thought, no, it couldn't have been Red Skelton. Well, it was Red Barber, and he sent me, because there was a shortage of announcers, to do a football game in Boston. It was Boston University, Maryland. Maryland would be the national champions the following year. When I got to Boston, my school, Fordham, was playing Boston College, and there was going to be a big dance after that game. Being single, looking forward to the dance more than anything else, I felt I can leave my hat, my coat, my gloves in the hotel room because, number one, I'm going to be working for a network. I'll probably have a beautiful glass enclosed booth and all kinds of stuff, and then I'll go directly to the dance. When I got to Fenway Park in Boston, and this is November, it is cold, went up on the roof, and there was an engineer sitting at a card table with his equipment, and he had a microphone and 50 yards of cable. There was no booth, nothing. So I stood with the microphone on the 50-yard line, and as the game progressed, I just kept going along with the game. By the time the game ended, I was frozen. It was pitch black. They turned the lights on. The wind was coming off the Charles River. And when the game was over, I went to the dance, but I really felt down. I thought I had this golden opportunity, and I just blew it because it was just so uncomfortable. On Monday, Red Barber either got a note or a phone call. The people at Boston were apologizing to him for putting his representative in such dire circumstances of being on a roof, etc., etc. Well, what that did turned out to be another bit of good fortune, because let's say I did even a less than ordinary job. What what really impressed Red was I never mentioned it. I never said I'm not in a booth. I never said that I'm freezing or that I'm running up and down the roof trying to do a football game. So I remember vividly his calling me, and he brought it all up, and I said, yes, it was pretty tough. And then he said the magic words, well, this week you'll have a booth. You're doing Harvard, Yale, which back there is certainly SC, UCLA, and then some. After that, I thought, now I'll just wait until February and go back to Washington. And just before Christmas, Ernie Harwell, wonderful broadcaster, Hall of Famer in his own right, left Brooklyn and went to New York. And Red decided on his own, you know, rather than get some professional announcer, bring him in to do an inning or two, and maybe he'd like to do a lot more, and we'd have friction in the booth, I think I'll take that kid and try and make a broadcaster out of him. So I went to spring training with Red on a 1 month's option. If I didn't make it, I assumed they would have left me in the Everglades, food for the alligators. But that's now 63 years ago, and I'm still trying to learn how to do it.
We love you.
Thank you, Red Barber.